Alright, what's up guys? It's Cbrev. If you're new to the channel, I am a top player in MLB The Show 19 this year. I made top 55 times. Just to give you kind of some perspective on where I'm coming from, I want to break down the ESL tournament that just came out and kind of discuss some areas of improvement where they can make the tournament better for the future. And I just want to put a huge preface out to this video that I'm not bashing this tournament at all. We've been waiting a long time for some sort of esports in MLB The Show, and this is awesome. And I'm super excited that it's a thing, and I'll be participating, etc., etc. And I do think they did some things well. However, I want to kind of give my perspective on what's not good with the tournament format and rules and such, so that moving forward, hopefully in MLB 20 we can get a full cup tour, I guess, like multiple tournaments throughout the year, and hopefully those rules can be better than the rules are now. So that's my goal with this video. Once again, not bashing anything, just wanted to give the perspective of a highly competitive player. And an SDS, if you're watching and you need someone to make these rules, I am more than available and needy. Okay, moving forward. So I'm just going to scroll through the full set of rules and just kind of discuss everything that I've thought about. And if you see me looking down, it's because I have notes so that I make sure I don't miss anything. So we're just going to go through everything. So overview, blah, blah, blah. I like that they're allowing 16-year-olds to compete. I actually like that a lot. Limiting it to 18-year-olds would dismiss a lot of really good players in the community, so I like that they are allowed to participate at 16. I like that a lot. They've got 8 open online qualifiers, 1 or 2 every weekend for 4 weekends, and then the Cup final is on the 5th weekend on Saturday. Pretty decent structure there. Except for when we get to the point system, I got a little bit of a gripe there, but we'll discuss that later. So the format is Swiss. I'm still unclear on how this is going to work, and I'll find out after the first tournament, which is in a couple hours today. But I read it on the actual tournament page as well, and it sounds like no matter what, you play 4 rounds, and then they just take how many games you won and give you points according to that. I'm not sure. It either goes one of 2 ways, and both ways are kind of bad, in my opinion. Either everyone is required to stop after 4 games, and then it's almost impossible to actually be considered for winning the online qualifier, because there's going to be probably hundreds of people that go 4-0. Or they're going to let you keep playing after the 4th game to see who wins the online qualifier, but you're not going to get any points towards qualifying for the Fall Cup. So either way, not a good system in my opinion, and I'll discuss the point system a little bit more in depth after we get past this part. But I do like that it's on Hall of Fame. I don't like that it's 3-inning games, but I understand for the online qualifiers that the goal is to get as many games done as possible. There's going to be a lot of variance, especially in a baseball game with 3-inning games, which kind of sucks. But then again, there's 8 online qualifiers, so hopefully the variance evens out over time unless you're super unlucky. Everything else looks good here. I think tournaments this year should be played on Hall of Fame. I think that's the best difficulty in my opinion. And here is one of my biggest gripes with this, so I'm going to go into a little more depth. So you get 20 points for a win with a cap of 80 points per online qualifier. So this is a big issue for me because this point system is far from ideal in my opinion, and it goes back to me saying, are they going to let you keep playing after 4 games or not? Nobody really knows till after today. But the fact that your amount of points you can win per online qualifier is capped is really terrible in my opinion. If there's 1,200 people signed up for the online qualifier and someone gets literally first place, they should get enough points to pretty much guarantee themselves a spot in the Fall Cup. That's my opinion. The way this works is if there's 1,000 people in the tournament, the person who gets first place and the person who gets 125th place are going to get the exact same amount of points towards qualifying for the Fall Cup, which is honestly just terrible in my opinion. I don't like it at all, and it creates a situation where volume overtakes skill as far as qualifying for the big shebang, the Fall Cup at the end, because if you miss even one of these 8 online qualifiers, you're putting yourself at a huge disadvantage because of this point cap per qualifier. So this largely encourages more participation rather than more dominance, if that makes sense. Literally, if you miss more than 2 of these qualifiers, you probably have no chance, because there's going to be plenty of people who are getting 3 to 4 wins every single week, and you can see they're taking the top 128 point scorers. So they are doing it based on points first, and then wins and win percentage come after that as tiebreakers. So you're pretty much required to play all 8 and win at least 2, probably at least 3 every single time to even qualify for the Cup, which I don't like at all, man. Like I said, if you literally win one of these qualifier tournaments, you should just get enough points to get in the Fall Cup. I mean, there's only going to be 8 winners, and imagine 3 of them don't make the Fall Cup because they couldn't play every single Saturday and Sunday for 4 weeks straight. Big gripe for me. Don't like it at all. Go back to the preface I said at the beginning. I'm not trying to bash it. It's just this has to be different moving forward, in my opinion, because you're not going to get the best players in the final tournament with a point structure like this. It's just not going to work. Going down to rules. So let's make sure I am good. Yep. All right. So my first gripe here, it's a small one, easy fix. This says lineup limit, which is not specific enough, in my opinion. Because it doesn't mention bench at all. Your bench is kind of implied by them saying the rest should be 84 and below, but I could definitely see a situation where someone loads their bench with 99 overalls and then pinch hits in the first inning with all their 99 overalls and then says, well, the rules didn't say anything about bench, so I just assumed that anything goes. So I think instead of lineup limit, this should say hitters or something like that. Hitters limit, I don't know. There's probably a better way to say that. Or you could just make a separate thing for bench and just say 84 below. But this is kind of ambiguous and an easy fix, so just wanted to bring it up. Starting rotation limit, this is a personal thing with me, but if you're going to have a system in the game where it randomly picks your starting pitcher, then in my opinion, in a competitive tournament, all your starting pitchers should be the exact same power level. So I understand the system in the game works where it'll match your number 1 pitcher with their number 1 pitcher, which is good. It means we're not going to get situations where someone's 99 Kershaw is going up against someone's 83 Gold. I don't think, hopefully. But in general, I just think this would be way better if it just said 85 to 94 diamond starters only, or something like that. Or even just 84 or below starters only. I just think all the starting pitchers should be the same power level because it's completely random which one you get. So there's going to be a lot of variance in the starting pitchers that you get, and it could help or hurt certain players in the game. Like if you're good at pitching and you happen to pull Kershaw for all 4 games, then you're just going to dominate that week. And it has nothing to do with your skill necessarily. So I just think all starting pitchers should be the same overall range. So that way when it's randomized, it's not such a big gap between your number 1 and your number 5. So bullpen looks good to me, actually. I like that you have to have 3 golds in the bullpen, and I like this stuff. I think the bullpen limit is really good. No complaints there. I also wanted to talk about, before we get down here, it doesn't mention anything about, let's see, what did I write? It doesn't mention anything about ratings, including an inside edge for live series players, or equipment for caps. So they, spoiler alert for later, they didn't say anything about caps, creative players, so I'm just assuming they're allowed. And this begs the question, is equipment then allowed? Because you can use your 82 gold creative player and load him up with diamond equipment, and in the game he'll be like over a 90 overall. Does that count as an 84 or below? Does it not count as that? It's really ambiguous. They didn't say anything about it, which I don't like very much. Just something to keep in mind. And also inside edge. So I have Yordan Alvarez on my bench right now, who's an 84, but he's playing up to an 85. So do they take his base overall and say that he's 84 or below, or do they take his inside edge rating, which is an 85, which would put him in this category? Same thing with Roberto Osuna. He's in my bullpen as an 83, but he's playing up to an 87. Which one of these does he qualify for? It doesn't say at all, and it's super ambiguous, so I think they need to be more specific about this type of stuff moving forward. Cup finals format, I have a little bit of a gripe with as well. This is the final tournament, so the final 128 players that qualify. I strongly dislike this. Rounds 128 to 8 are 3-inning games. I think that's a little ridiculous. You're down to the supposed top 128 players in the world. To make them play 3-inning games up until the final 4 is a little ridiculous, once again, because most competitive players will tell you that 3-inning games have a lot more randomness and RNG than even 6-inning games, and especially more than 9-inning games. By the time we get to the final tournament, there's only 128 players left, so I don't really understand the point of 3-inning games, because we're not really in a rush to get games done as much as we were in the online qualifiers. I think this should be at least 6-inning games. In my personal opinion, I think all games for the final tournament should be 9 innings. That's my opinion. But if you want to shorten it, this should be 6 innings, and then I think starting maybe at round of 16, maybe even around of 32, they should become 9-inning games. It's just a lot better format for 9-inning games to figure out who the better player is over the course of the game. 3-inning games up until the final 4 for the last tournament is just not good, in my opinion. There's going to be so much variance, it's going to be insane. So, last couple things here. I got 4 more things to go. 3 of them I'll just say as we get past the rules here. As you can see, that's pretty much the end of the rules. Big thing here, they don't specify who should be home or who should be away. When you start the match, maybe the tournament app will determine that randomly, but it's really a big deal to be the home team, especially in a 3-inning game. So if they don't specify, and if one person has to invite another, you're going to get some Western style standoffs where neither person is accepting the other person's invite because they want to be the home team. There's no wordage in here that says who should be who. There's no seating system, so really it's kind of a big deal, especially with 3-inning games. Like, being the home team is a way bigger deal in a short game than in a long game, because it puts a lot of pressure on if you end up tied going into the bottom of the 3rd or something like that. I just think it's a huge advantage to be the home team in a 3-inning game, so they didn't say anything about that. They didn't mention anything about in-game sliders. So there was a big issue earlier in the year where if you adjust your in-game sliders, they would actually work in Play vs. Friends games, which means you could turn your fastball velocity like all the way up, and it would literally look like the pitch was coming in at like 180 miles an hour to your opponent. They didn't say anything about screenshot your sliders, stream your games. Supposedly they fixed the slider issue in a patch, but no one has confirmed or denied that, so I'm just going to assume it's still a thing. And so they didn't say anything about it, and there's really no way to prove that your opponent has their sliders all the way up except for video evidence, which in itself is ambiguous, and not a lot of people have access to streaming their games to even have that video evidence in the first place. So I just think they should have said something about it. I don't know. Ideally, it wouldn't even be an issue at all, but what can you do? And then this is the biggest thing. This is kind of a huge deal. I didn't see anything about any of this stuff in any of the rules, which is a huge mistake in my opinion. So they didn't mention anything about stadiums. Most competitive tournaments in MLB The Show are played at minor league stadiums only. The reason is because major league stadiums have higher frame rates, and it messes with your swing timing because it generates lag as the pitch is coming in. Some major league stadiums are much worse than others, Minute Maid Park being the worst because there's so much going on. It creates huge frame rate issues, and that's why in general competitive tournaments are played in minor league stadiums only. They did not specify anything about that. They didn't specify anything about weather. Most competitive tournaments are played only at 1 p.m. or 7 p.m. and obviously no rain or anything. You don't want a 4 p.m. start because that's when the shadows start to affect the mound, which is kind of less than ideal in a competitive environment, so nothing specified there. They also didn't restrict the use of knuckleballers, which most competitive tournaments have done this year because the knuckleball is insanely broken. and one of the most overpowered things you can do. They didn't say no knuckleballers, so I'm fully expecting to see the guy from Tampa Bay and also Stephen Wright a ton. I could see a situation where someone just gets one out with their starting pitcher, puts in the left-handed knuckler, and then just gets like 2 or 3 free wins because they're playing people who can't hit a knuckleball. Knuckleballers should be banned 100% no matter what. I can't believe they didn't mention it at all. Not good in my opinion. And then finally, I already mentioned it, but they didn't say anything about create a player either, which I think is a mistake. Most competitive tournaments ban the use of a competitive or of a created player, mostly because the diamond version with the equipment that you can get for him and the fact that he can be a switch hitter makes him really overpowered, and it's generally just not fun to pitch to Big Daddy Dick in a competitive environment. It's way more fun for them to actually like make a real person play that position. So they didn't say anything there, and that goes back to my issue with equipment or not earlier. So a lot of things to be improved on here, and like I said, that's the reason I'm making this video. Once again, not to bash anyone, just this could be so much better than it is. It's insane. So finally, the last thing I want to talk about is down here under match rules and disqualification. So this says these are things that are banned essentially. This is taking advantage of known exploits in the game. It is the responsibility of players to understand and avoid all current illegal exploits. So this is so ambiguous, so generic, it hurts. This verbiage is just truly terrible in my opinion, because it's completely subjective to each player, especially in MLB The Show, what's considered an exploit and what isn't. So someone might think slide stepping every pitch is an exploit. Someone might think taking a one-step lead before every pitch when you have a runner on base is an exploit. Someone might think that auto shifting every player is an exploit. Someone might think, it may even go as far as someone might think throwing balls in the dirt every pitch is an exploit. Like, there's no definition of what is an exploit and what isn't. Obviously, a knuckleballer is another example. Like, is using knuckleballers an exploit? Is using cap an exploit? Nothing is defined, and the verbiage that we should determine it as players ourselves is awful in my opinion, because like I said, it's subjective to each player. You could even get into a situation where someone's just mad that they're losing and they say that it's an exploit that this person is going to their bullpen after just one out, and then they want to challenge the game, and then because ESL doesn't have any like regulation over the game, they'll just say okay, replay it. Like, I could definitely see a situation like that happening. Well, he thinks it's an exploit, so why don't you guys just start over? And then this guy who should have lost gets a second chance, and then if he's losing again, he complains about a different exploit, and so on. I don't think it's ever the responsibility of players to understand and avoid all current illegal exploits. I definitely think it's the responsibility of the organization putting on the tournament to define what those illegal exploits are. So like I said, SDS, ESL, I'm more than happy to do that for you guys moving forward if you happen to see this video. Otherwise, this is way too ambiguous and just leads to a lot of bad things that can happen over the course of a tournament. So with that being said, that's pretty much all I had. It's kind of just generic stuff after this. I hope this was helpful if it reaches the people that I hope that it reaches. I hope for some of my fans you just kind of enjoyed this video. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Let me know if you have any questions or comments yourself down below. Drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already to my channel. I post MLB The Show content pretty much every day. Lots of card reviews, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.